Hello and welcome to episode 24 of The Australian Runner, a weekly show about running and everything running related. I'm Ben, and with me is Chris.
Hi everyone.
Today's episode is about sports drinks. Let's get started. Sports drinks are everywhere. You've got Gatorade, Powerade, Staminade, plus all the other ones like Lucozade. I really like ending in A, don't they?
Yep.
Before we get started, do you actually use these sports drinks regularly when you're doing running or exercise?
Not too regularly, no. During the racing season and after a race, before a major race, I will have a bit of a sip on them. But for the majority during training, I never take them.
Is that any particular reason?
I believe that sports drinks are just the final 1%, and for the majority of work, they don't help you too much. They're good for topping up energy stores and hydrating you, but there's many other ways you can do that, such as just drinking plain old water. But when I do take it, I like to dilute it a little bit.
Diluting it, just even a bit less strong than usual.
Yeah, I just find that it is too thick, Gatorade and Powerade. Like, it's just so rich and sweet that a little bit of water, I just dilute it down a little bit, and it makes it just so much more consumable.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Back in the day when I did a lot of cycling, I'd have a bottle of Gatorade made from the powder using whatever their recommended amount of powder to put in was, and I used to halve it as well, because for the first bit when I was riding, maybe the first hour and a half, it felt fine, but the longer it went on, it just felt like it was getting sweeter and sweeter.
We've got to make the distinction between sports drinks and energy drinks as well. We're talking properly about those branded for sport, not Red Bull or V or any of those types of drinks.
Yeah, that's right. So none of these caffeinated beverages we're talking about.
Yeah.
I guess Gatorade's your typical example where they market it at athletes for sport.
Yeah.
But even though the two of us personally no longer use them as much, they do still have some benefits, and there are reasons why for you it might be really good to have them. The main two reasons are to prevent dehydration and to prevent hypernatremia, which is low sodium levels in your blood. Preventing dehydration is fairly straightforward. It's good to drink more fluids. And one of the key ways that these sports drinks try and get around that is actually just by making them taste nice. So if you have Gatorade versus plain water, you're going to go for the Gatorade if it's just based purely on taste. Some people might not like it so sweet, so they might
pretty sweet.
So they might dilute it like you do, Chris.
Yeah.
But they just taste nice, and of course they've got a range of different flavors as well to make them taste better, because if they taste nice, you're more likely to drink more fluids and stay better hydrated.
Yeah, and they're so sweet as well because they've got a lot of glycogen and carbohydrates in them, so that if you are consuming them while you exercise, you're actually getting a form of nutrition into your body, and it's not just the liquid that's helping you, so all those sugars in the body help replenish those glycogen stores.
Yeah, and that can also help avoid whatever the opposite of dehydration is. Overhydration, not too sure, but that is when you drink too much water compared to how much sodium or other electrolytes you've got in your blood, and then that's bad for your body as well, which people have actually died from it. I think there was one famous case several years ago, not in sport I don't think, but in it was a radio competition. It was like hold your wee to win a wee. So they had to drink as much water as they could in 15 minutes, and then had to drink like 10 litres of water or something in 15 minutes, and then see who could go without weeing the longest. And one of the people in that actually died because they just diluted their electrolytes so much that their body just started shutting down.
Yeah, but this won't be so much of a problem in sport.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that if you're drinking lots of water without balancing that out by adding more electrolytes, you're not going to be going as well, and you may begin to fatigue or...
Sooner than you usually would.
Yeah, exactly.
And one of the main times to use sports drinks are during events longer than 90 minutes. We talked about before how it's all about, that's when glycogen stores are depleted and then you hit the wall. And so a lot of marathon runners use these sports drinks while they're running. Just the other week in the Nike sub 2 hour project, Kipchoge used a Morton sports drink, which has maltodextrin, fructose, pectin, sodium in it. And so the fructose is the sugars to give him more energy, and then he's got a couple of salts as electrolytes to help him retain the water in his body while he runs.
Yeah, which is interesting because people tend to assume having salt makes you thirstier, but it actually helps you retain the water that you've already drunk as well.
It does. So it's probably more crucial in hotter environments.
Yeah, for sure. Plus, if it's hotter, you're going to sweat more, and that's where you lose a lot of your salt from your blood.
Yeah. One of the limitations with sports drinks are that a lot of Kenyans are right at the top of their game and at the top of the running world, and that they barely use sports drinks. Back home in Kenya, most of their diet consists of water, milk, and a very basic diet. None of this specially formulated product or anything, and they can achieve such great heights. So it just shows you how little sports drinks ultimately matter.
Yeah, so they're definitely just that little 1% increase that'll make you run better, and obviously much more crucial in hotter environments and if you sweat more.
Yep. So we've talked about sports drinks along the Gatorade, Powerade line of thought. But there's also other drinks that could be used for sport purposes that help give you that benefit and edge post exercise. And their main goal is really to help replenish the body and recover it well for the next time. And one of the best things we've talked about before is chocolate milk, because the protein is there in the milk and the chocolate makes it sweet and provides those carbohydrates necessary to give you that quick replenish of energy post exercise. So you'd never drink this during a race because you'd probably feel bloated and heavy, but perfect afterwards. Same goes as protein drinks as well.
Yeah, so it's a bit different what you're trying to accomplish afterwards, because during your event or leading up to it, you just want to stay hydrated, get a couple of those carbs, get the salt to make you perform well, but then afterwards, yeah, you just want to recover. So getting that extra protein and sugar in that chocolate milk works fantastically.
And studies back up that chocolate milk is good for you post-exercise.
Apparently beer is meant to be good for you as well. Have a beer after a race, because that's meant to have some similar amounts, which might have to try that one out.
I heard it's only one, and then afterwards it's bad for you.
Oh,
the effects wear off.
Everything for science, that's what I say.
Yeah, I have to give that a trial.
So, in conclusion, sports drinks are very useful to help you stay hydrated and keep your electrolytes up, to stop you from getting dehydrated or low in salt during your event. So that's why you have them before and during. Longer events, maybe 90 minutes or longer, is when they're most useful. Anything shorter, and while it's good to stay hydrated, it's not as crucial. Unless it's hot, in which case you'll be losing a lot of that salt that you want to replenish just through your sweating.
Yeah, I completely agree. The main thing that sports drinks have got going for them is the taste, and it encourages you to drink more. But if you're comfortable drinking a lot, water and a balanced diet is usually enough.
Excellent, and I think that wraps up the first half of the show. We hope you found that useful. And now I'll pass it over to Chris for the week's running and athletics news.
Boy, oh boy, wowee. What a week of news it is. Many events held over the weekend, and the biggest was the Prefontaine Classic in Eugene, Oregon, doubling as a Diamond League event. In the men's 5,000 metres, it was won by the king of the event, Mo Farah, in his last ever race on American soil. He's retiring after the World Championships, and we have a special coming up soon, so watch out for that. Patrick Tiernan, the Australian, ran 13:13:44 to become the fourth fastest Aussie ever over that distance. Only Mottram, Birmingham and St Lawrence have run faster, so he's in great company. In the women's 5,000 metres, Madeline Hills lined up against a deep field with DeBarber aiming for the world record, as it was always going to be quick. Hills ended up 13th with a time of 15:15, just 10 seconds short of her PB she set in Rio last year, but it doubles as a world champs qualifier. In the women's 1500 metres, Lyndon Hall, the Rio semi-finalist, finally got the world champs qualifier after a few attempts, with her run of 4:07:37. She wasn't overly happy with the race, as it was a tactical affair and she wanted a fast time, but we know there's still running left in her legs. In the second women's 1500 metre race, Heidi C lined up and ran 4:15:34, a season's best. In the men's Bowman Mile, our own Ryan Gregson ran in the race, but unfortunately one athlete, Suleiman, fell over and he had to jump over the top of him, as a result falling off the back of the pack, and he could never regain touch. He finished 11th with a time of 3:56:90. In the international mile, young up-and-comers Luke Matthews and Matthew Ramsden showed they are very capable, running 3:54:53 and 3:59:80 respectively. To the same meet, but out in the field, Catherine Mitchell continued her consistent and excellent form, throwing 62:87 in the women's javelin for 5th spot. To para-athletics for a second, and Reid McCracken set a world record in the T34 100 metres with a time of 14:92 at the Swiss Nationals over the weekend. This is a wheelchair event, and in Rio he won silver in the event. Back closer to home and in Australia, in the T36 long jump, Braden Davidson set 2 Australian records and secured a World Champs qualifier with jumps of 5:66 and 5:70 metres. To Europe, and in Manchester they had their running festival, and the Great Manchester Run, a 10-kilometre race, was held. Collis Birmingham was 4th in 28:24 in a stacked field, and he's back in a big way after a long stint of injuries and is in great form now after doing the pacing for that 2-hour marathon attempt the other month. Nick Earl, alright, he's British, but he lives and works in Melbourne, so we'll claim him. He was 10th in a time of 29:42, which is a PB. Sally Pearson ran 12:81 over the 100 metre hurdles on her comeback. Closer to home and on Australian soil, there was the Balmoral Burn in Sydney over the weekend, a hill run to support the Humpty Dumpty Foundation, which was won by Annalise Ruby. New South Wales also hosted their state cross-country relays, while Victoria hosted another round of cross-country. And finally, the marathon team for the World Championships was announced last week. The women's team consists of Jess Treengrove, Millie Clark and Sinead Diver, and the men's side consists of Brad Milosevic, Josh Harris and Jeff Hunt, which have all achieved the qualifying standards. We look forward to see what they can produce in August. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Chris, and that's it for the show this week. Thank you everyone for listening. You can find us on iTunes and YouTube as The Australian Runner. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram, or head to www.theaustralianrunner.com. See you next week.
See you then.